continuation of when the room began to shake. But first, please do me a favor and hit the subscribe button if you didn't do so yet. Like, comment, and share it with a friend. All right, let's begin. The prayer room had become alive. Every Friday night, Elijah's apartment filled with voices. Worship, laughter, tears, and prayer. People arrived carrying burdens and somehow left lighter. Nobody fully understood what was happening there, but everyone knew God was moving. The little apartment no longer felt small. It felt holy. One rainy evening after prayer ended, most people slowly gathered their things and headed home. The room smelled like coffee and candle wax. Soft worship music still played quietly from the speaker near the window while Elijah stacked empty cups in the kitchen sink. Daniel leaned against the counter smiling. "You know this place is becoming dangerous?" Elijah laughed softly. "Dangerous?" "Yeah," Daniel said. "People are changing." Elijah shook his head. "That's God." Before Daniel could answer, a knock sounded at the apartment door. 3 soft knocks. Elijah opened it carefully. A young man stood outside in a soaked hoodie. Thin, exhausted, shivering slightly. His eyes looked hollow. Is this the prayer apartment?" Elijah blinked. "The what?" "The prayer room," the young man corrected awkwardly. "Someone told me people pray here." Elijah looked at Daniel for a moment before stepping aside. "Come in." The young man hesitated before entering slowly. His shoes were torn badly. Rainwater dripped onto the floor beneath him. "You can sit," Elijah said gently. The young man lowered himself onto the couch nervously, glancing around the apartment. "You want coffee?" Daniel asked. The guy nodded quietly. A few minutes later, they sat together around the table. The young man finally introduced himself. He was Micah. Elijah smiled softly. "I'm Elijah." Micah stared down at the steaming coffee cup in his hands. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then suddenly, Micah laughed bitterly. "I don't even know why I came here." Elijah stayed quiet. "I guess I just ran out of places to go." His words hung heavily in the room. Micah rubbed both hands over his face. "My life is messed up." There was pain in his voice. Deep pain. "I lost my job months ago. I got kicked out of where I was staying. My family barely talks to me anymore." Daniel listened silently. Micah swallowed hard. And honestly, his eyes watered. "I'm tired." The apartment became still. Not awkward stillness, the kind where hearts are listening carefully. Micah stared at the floor. "I keep asking God to help me, but nothing changes." Elijah's chest tightened hearing those words. Because not long ago, he said those exact same things. Micah shook his head. "I don't need another motivational speech." "You won't get one," Elijah replied softly. Micah looked up, slightly surprised. Elijah leaned forward. "I know what it feels like to think heaven went silent." Daniel nodded quietly beside him. Elijah continued. "And I know what it feels like when life keeps breaking faster than you can rebuild it." Micah's eyes filled with tears again. "So, what do I do?" Elijah looked down at the open Bible still sitting on the table from prayer earlier. Acts chapter 3. He slowly smiled to himself. Then he looked back at Micah. "You know there's a story in the Bible about a man sitting outside the temple begging every day?" Micah shrugged slightly. "Elijah," Daniel whispered softly, recognizing where this was going. "The man expected money," Elijah continued, "but Peter told him something powerful." Elijah spoke carefully. "Silver and gold have I none." Micah listened quietly. "But what I do have," Elijah said gently, "I give to you." The room fell silent again. Micah looked confused. "I don't understand." Elijah leaned back slightly. "I may not be able to fix your whole life tonight." He looked around the tiny apartment. "I don't have millions of rands." I don't have all the answers." Then he smiled softly. "But I do know God is still near to broken people." Tears rolled slowly down Micah's face. For the first time in a long time, someone saw him as more than a problem. Daniel quietly stood up. "Can we pray for you?" Micah hesitated, then slowly nodded. The three of them stood together in the middle of the apartment. Rain hit the windows softly outside. The city lights glowed faintly through the curtains. Elijah placed a hand gently on Micah's shoulder, and they prayed. Not fancy prayers, real ones. "God, meet him here. Bring peace where there's chaos. Remind him he's not forgotten." Micah began crying harder. Years of pain seemed to pour out at once, and suddenly something shifted in the room. Not physically, spiritually. The heaviness Micah carried seemed lighter somehow. He breathed deeply for what felt like the first time in forever. When the prayer ended, nobody spoke immediately. Micah wiped his eyes, embarrassed. "I'm sorry." "You never have to apologize for being honest here," Elijah said. That sentence broke him all over again. Weeks passed. Micah kept returning to the prayer room. At first he barely spoke. He mostly sat quietly, listening during worship. But slowly, something changed. His eyes looked brighter, his posture stronger, his smile more genuine. One night during worship, Micah suddenly raised his hands while tears streamed down his face. Daniel leaned toward Elijah, whispering, "Look at him." Elijah smiled quietly, because this was the miracle. Not fame, not crowds, not money. Transformation. The kind only God could do. A month later, Elijah walked through the city with Micah after prayer night ended. Cars moved past while cold wind swept through the streets. Micah suddenly stopped walking. "You know what's crazy?" "What?" "I came to your apartment hoping somebody would save my life financially." Elijah nodded slowly. "But God started healing my heart first." Elijah smiled, and that was exactly what Acts chapter 3 was about. Sometimes people think their greatest need is external, but heaven sees deeper. Micah looked up at the night sky. "I still don't have everything figured out." "You don't need to," Elijah replied. But for the first time, Micah smiled softly. "I actually believe my life can change." The city lights shimmered around them while they continued walking down the sidewalk. And Elijah realized something powerful. The miracle wasn't always instant. Sometimes healing looked like hope returning slowly, like peace after years of chaos. Like somebody choosing not to give up anymore. Maybe that was one of the greatest miracles of all.